Well, this presentation, number 59, is a continuation of my series called Unraveling Yeshua's Hard Sayings. We're going to consider the saying that Yeshua made when the young man who wanted to follow him said, "I want to go and bury my father first, and then I can follow you." And he said, "Let the dead bury their dead." Where does this occur? Well, this occurs in Matthew chapter 8. Another of his disciples requested, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus told him, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead." We find the same story being told in Luke 9th chapter. Then he said to another man, "Follow me." The man replied, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Yeshua told him, let the dead bury their own dead. You, however, go and proclaim the kingdom, or the Malkuth, the sovereignty of God. Now we have many other references that illuminate what is meant by dead and death and being alive and so on. Here in the parable of the prodigal son in Luke, we find this statement: "Bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let us feast and celebrate, for the son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." We find in Thomas Logian 11b, "The spiritually dead are not alive, and the spiritually alive do not die." And we find Paul saying that, "For if their rejection," meaning the Judeans who rejected Jesus, "if their rejection means the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance mean but life from the dead?" And the writer of Ephesians, who may or may not have been Paul, may have been someone later, says, "You were dead in your transgressions and sins, but you were made alive with Christ even when we were dead in our trespasses." And in Colossians, "When you were dead in your trespasses and in the circumcision or the uncircumcision of your sinful nature, God made you alive with Christ." So all these are indicating that the word dead is being used here in reference to spiritual qualities of a person. Timothy, much later than that, not written by Paul probably, "She who lives for pleasure is dead even while she is still alive." We have Matthew 8:21 quoted in several of the church fathers, in Tertullian, and Clement of Alexandria in the Stromata, and in Cyprian on the Lord's Prayer. And Luke 9:60 is quoted in Tertullian against Marcion and Irenaeus against heresies, and there are many others. So this was considered to be a very important statement, easily remembered and memorized and referred to. What is the context? Well, when a person died, the body was placed on a shelf carved in the rock. A year later, the family would return and gather all the bones and place them with the bones of other family members on another shelf or the floor. And this is called the second burial. In Israel, in the 1st century AD, this burial practice became much more costly. Instead of placing them on a shelf or floor, they would take the bones of the dead and place them in an ossuary, that is a bone box, usually carved out of some kind of rock, with the name of the dead written on the box. Now, in this particular reference I'm giving you, called Ancient Hebrew org, and all this is being said, and the comment is, as Jesus would never have told someone not to bury their father, which was a violation of the commandment to honor your father and mother, The only conclusion is that the man was referring to this second burial, which is called the ossilegium, and is why Jesus told him to let the dead bury their dead. Elite burials happened in two phases. The second burial consisting in collecting the bones after the decomposition of the body and placing them in specific places within the tomb, a procedure known as the ossilegium. Around 20 to 15 BC, Judean elites started using ossuaries made of limestone, a custom that continued in the Jerusalem area until a little after 70 CE. This is in the book by Keddy, written in 2019, page 230. An old view that most scholars, including me, reject is the one here expressed by Dr. George Lamza, who translated the New Testament from Aramaic. That is, he translated the Greek and put it all back into Aramaic, although only the sayings of YESHUA are probably originally written in Aramaic. Lamza very wrongly attributed all the writings of the New Testament to being originally Aramaic. But here is his view. He says this statement that it is an Aramaic colloquialism, and it means that the son would take care of his aging father until he dies, which might take many years. So the would-be disciple could not follow Jesus. So that, of course, doesn't make any sense where the disciple wants to follow Jesus right away. So see idioms in the Bible explained, and the key to the original Gospels by George Lamza, and it's published in San Francisco. And another of the disciples said unto him, Lord, suffer me first to go and bury my father. That meant take care of my father till he dies. That's what Lamza says. But this explanation has been rejected. It's not really an Aramaic colloquialism. Now, there are other DAVRIM of YESHUA that really clarify this hard saying. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father, in comparison to the Malkuth, sovereignty, the kingdom of heaven, and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, and yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. That's in Luke 14 with the variants I've already discussed. And that indicates the very high importance that YESHUA attached to proclaiming the Basor of the kingship or the sovereignty of heaven. Whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. So YESHUA is talking about, in a way that's slightly symbolic, that to lose one's life, it means you give up your previous commitments and things like that, and come with him. But of course, people did not do that thoroughgoingly. For example, Peter and the other disciples from Galilee walked with YESHUA, and Mary Magdalene walked with YESHUA, and they went with him to certain places, but they also came back home themselves to take care of business and things like that. But if the implication was that you will save yourself, you will gain liberation by losing your old life as far as possible. No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom or the Malkuth of God. That's in other parts of Luke 9. To put one's hand to a plow is a proverbial expression, says Albert Barnes in the commentary in Luke 9:62. To signify undertaking any business. In order that a plowman may accomplish his work, it is necessary to look onward, to be intent on his employment, not to be looking back with regret that he undertook it. So in religion, he that enters on it must do it with his whole heart. He that comes still loving the world, still looking with regret on its pleasures, its wealth, and its honors, that has not wholly forsaken them as his portion, cannot be a Christian and is not fit for the kingdom of God. This is Albert Barnes' commentary on this saying. But this is the idea that of these sayings, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom, that YESHUA said, as repeating a proverb, that illustrates another dimension of the hard saying of YESHUA about let the dead bury their dead. Because what you have to do is much more important than that. You are doing something that is vitally important for you and yourself and for the world. Now, there are other words of YESHUA that also clarify this hard saying. Seek first the Malkuth of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. That he's saying something like, follow me and things will work out with your father's ossilegium burial. Because the Malkuth of God is the most important thing right now. Now, YESHUA also tells a parable. A man had received visitors, and when he prepared the dinner, he sent his servant to invite the guests. He went to the first one and said to him, my master invites you. He said, I have claims against some merchants. They're coming to me this evening. I must go and give them my orders. I ask to be excused from the dinner. He went to another and said to him, my master has invited you. And he said to him, I have just bought a house and am required for the day. I shall not have any spare time. And he said to him, my friend is going to get married after another person was invited. And I'm asked to be excused to the dinner because I shall not be able to come. And he went to another and said to him, my master invites you. And he said to him, I have just bought a farm and I am on my way to collect the rent. I shall not be able to come. I ask to be excused. The servant returned and said to his master, those whom you invited to the dinner have asked to be excused. The master said to his servant, go outside to the streets and bring back whomever you happen to meet so that they may dine. And that's something that's found in both Matthew and Luke and in the Thomas Logian 64 and Marcion Evangelion. Also had a strong meaning about the importance of accepting the invitation from YESHUA. First, before you do all these things, follow me. Don't excuse yourself for worldly concerns. Instead, make eternal concerns your first priority. So what YESHUA is saying basically to this young man when he says, let the dead bury their dead, is no more needs to be done. The man had already cared for his father until he died, and all that remained was the ossilegium, which was the task of collecting his dead father's bones and placing them within the tomb, just a ritual. Jews used the word dead often to express indifferences towards a thing or to express that something had no influence over us. To be dead to the law, as Paul says in Romans 7:4, or to be dead to sin, as he says in 6:11, means that the law and sin have no influence or control or importance over us. So that's what the word dead was used to mean. It meant many things. It meant to be dead to sin was to be dead to life, to be dead to spirituality, and all these things. So in this Devar of YESHUA, dead meant people who were unaware and didn't care about the Malkuth of God, about spirituality. Until they became aware, they would continue to think that death was the end of life. We might confer Paul, who said, "O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory?" Because Christ had vanquished death. The meaning of the Devar is, let the spiritually unaware bury the spiritually unaware, but you come and follow me.